Dawn, June 4th, 1942. The air over Midway Atoll is thick with tension, as if the entire ocean is holding its breath, keeping a terrible secret. On the horizon, a dark gray triangle glides silently through the water. It's unlike any warship of the era, more like a glitch in the fabric of history itself. A sea watchman raises his binoculars, squinting. To the naked eye, the vessel almost vanishes against the waves, a mere phantom. But on the radar screen, it flares up, a blinding white light, like an unmistakable declaration of war from an unknown enemy. How can a single mysterious ship threaten to shatter the balance of power in the entire Pacific? Want to find out what happens next? Make sure you subscribe to the channel, because the next part of this story is so intense, you won't want to blink. Don't miss it. But wait before the alarm siren rips the morning open. Play a what-if game with me. You get to change exactly one thing in the Battle of Midway. No adding a fleet. No changing the weather. Only place one object from the wrong era into the right frame. Offshore, a dark shadow glides like a blade across glass, so angular the sunlight slides off instead of clinging. No smoke, no mast, no familiar engine roar. Only a silence that makes your skin crawl. American scout planes circle overhead. Island sentries narrow their eyes. Both get stuck on the same question. Is this a ship or a hallucination? If you were a person in 1942, you'd call it a ghost ship. But if you're us, you know it's the USS Zumwalt, a ship from 2016. And what's truly frightening isn't just the steel or the missiles, but the timing. It arrives 74 years early, on that exact Midway morning, right as the western horizon begins to wake with the sound of Japanese propellers. If Part 1 was an appearance that made history choke on seawater, then Part 2 is the terrifying realization that what just surfaced isn't just a strange ship, but a predator from the future. The USS Zumwalt is all sharp edges, low-slung, and cold as a steel knife. Stare long enough, and you understand why they call it stealth. But the real terror is what's inside. Its advanced radar sweeps the sky and sea like flipping on floodlights in a dark room, turning every enemy plane into a bright, clear target. Behind that radar sit 80 missile cells, packed with weapons that can strike from far beyond the horizon, long before a 1942 pilot even knows they're being attacked. But this future has a weakness. It's addicted to satellites, data links, and modern supply chains. In 1942, the Zumwalt is like a smartphone with a dying battery and no charger. Every missile fired is a piece of the future that can't be replaced. And on the horizon, the enemy fleet is closing in. 4:30 a.m. On the decks of the Japanese carriers, propellers whirl to life. On the Zumwalt screens, the sky over Midway erupts into a swarm of bright dots, all hurtling forward. In 1942, this was courage, steel, and human will. For the Zumwalt, it's just data speed, altitude, heading, numbers racing towards a final calculation. In the Combat Information Center, the command is swift and brutal. Prioritize the torpedo bombers and the dive bombers. Shatter their formation before they even lay eyes on their target. The vertical launch system lids snap open. A single sharp command, launch. A Standard Missile 6 rips from the deck, leaving a clean trail of fire. It's like the Zumwalt is playing with cheat codes. See first, shoot first, and eliminate the enemy before they can even ask why. No dogfights, no heroic maneuvers, just distance and a punch that travels faster than a prayer. One Japanese plane vanishes in a white flash, then a second, then a whole cluster wiped out by an invisible hand. Japanese pilots scream into their radios, "We're hit. We can't see the enemy." In an instant, their unbreakable formation tears apart like wet paper. The Zumwalt doesn't fire wildly. It selects, it locks, it terminates. As the survivors scatter in panic, the mid-range defenses pick off the stragglers. Then silence. A chilling, Absolute quiet returns to the sea. The target count on the display plummets to nearly zero. The ammo count drops with it. 80 launch cells seem like an infinite supply, until you realize each launch costs a fortune, a piece of the future spent in a flash. The lull after the first wave isn't peace. It's the silence before you can name your fear. On the Japanese carriers, communications officers hear what sound like ghost stories. Aircraft vanish without a trace. Formations are ripped apart by weapons no one can see. No one can point to a spot on the sea and say, "The enemy is there." An idea begins to spread like smoke through a closed room. Something impossible stands between them and Midway. Nagamo can handle a tactical defeat, but he can't handle being blind. When you don't know what's hitting you, you hit yourself with panic. On the Zumwalt, there's no room for that luxury. The numbers are blunt. How many long-range rounds are left? How many layers of defense remain? There's no port to resupply, no way to replace a 2016 part in 1942. Every shot fired is final. And what's worse, under the sea, a submarine doesn't need to understand the future. It just needs one propeller sound, one firing angle. The question is no longer, how many can we shoot down? But can we end this before we run out of rounds and get dragged under? As the screen flickers with new targets, the answer must come now. The second wave wasn't a blind swarm. It was a thinking hand, spreading from multiple directions, forcing the Zumwalt to keep turning. The enemy dots on the screen didn't clump together. They scattered, stayed low, and used the clouds and sea as cover. The attackers knew one simple truth. If an invisible enemy kills you from far away, you must confuse it, split its attention. Inside the Combat Information Center, the orders were short but heavy. Shoot sparingly. Shoot in layers. Leave no direction undefended. Long-range missiles cut first, followed by medium range. The last few were picked off at the very edge. But war is never perfect. One low-flying group slipped through a tiny gap in the radar sweep. The warning tone blared a sharp, heart-stopping snap. On deck, an incoming object at close range. The close-in defense system kicked in with tight, clipped flashes. A plane exploded just off the side, debris tearing into the water. No one was hurt, but the room fell silent. It was a stark reminder. One small error, and history demands payment in blood. When the sky cleared, the victory was still Zumwalt's, but the cost was clear on the ammo board. Every shot fired brought them one step closer to a critical decision. Strike now, or risk running empty? Thanks for watching. You can't defend forever with a finite wallet, especially when your opponent's heart is still beating out there. 4 carriers controlling the morning sky. In the Combat Information Center, decisions aren't made with emotion, but with math. If you keep shooting down planes, you'll win each minute but lose the day. To end it, you have to hit the place where the planes are born. The problem? It's 1942. There are no satellites, no data links, no one sending fresh coordinates. But the Zumwalt compensates with powerful radar, trajectory estimation, and old-school tools like maps and reference points. It chooses a surgical strike, not a wild swing. The VLS lids open. Tomahawks burst out, flying low and fast over the water like a curse. On the Japanese side, there's no time to react. It's not a plane you can see or a shell you can hear. Then the flight decks ignite. It's a fire that clings, that eats fuel, that severs command. One precise cut makes everything else stumble. The Tomahawk doesn't need to sink the fleet. It just needs to take away its ability to strike. As smoke rises on the horizon, the Zumwalt knows it has touched the heart and drawn the entire ocean's gaze. Smoke still hangs on the horizon, but what makes Zumwalt's skin go cold isn't on the surface. Under the deep blue, the submarine I-168 is doing what it does best: silent, patient, waiting for the strongest to slip. Radar can see aircraft, but underwater, Everything is just inference and instinct. No minimap. No Wi-Fi. Only the sea and silence. In the Combat Information Center, orders come fast. Change heading constantly. Vary speed. Deploy decoys. Zumwalt slices through the waves like a blade, but war always finds a way to pull you down. The alarm snaps on. Then a white track rips the sea to starboard a torpedo. It doesn't care what year you're from. It only needs to touch steel. The ship yanks into a hard turn, the deck tilting. The foam track slides past the stern, so close everyone understands. Even a god can bleed. This single dodge forces the burning carriers to bunch up, their flight decks in chaos. The battle, already fragile, becomes a quick collapse. Then, as it arrived, Zumwalt withdraws into the mist, leaving a story no one can prove, the Phantom of Midway. Want to know the price of this scar in time? Comment Midway below.